So the other day, my electric skateboard stopped turning on. Nothing. My warranty was expired and tech support was taking forever to get back to me, so I decided to take matters into my own hands. I tested the battery with a multimeter and it read about 2 volts. For context, it's supposed to read about 50. At this point, I was pretty confident that my battery was the issue, but I decided to test my speed controller too to make sure that wasn't the problem, and here it is working. But the battery looked fine to me. I couldn't see anything that looked wrong with it, so I ended up opening it, ripping all the plastic off, and I found rust. So I peeled that off and I found rust on the battery contacts, which isn't good. Other than the rust in the corner, everything else seemed fine just by inspection. I was most especially worried about the battery board, but it looked fine. It didn't look like any water had gotten to it at all. So I tested each of the cells, and each of them looked fine, so I knew that the cells were fine, which was a big relief because those are expensive, but that left me even more confused because everything looked fine. I could not figure out what could be the problem. I sat there banging my head against the wall for a few minutes until I finally found a broken wire. This is the wire that delivers the power directly to the actual skateboard, so of course the skateboard wouldn't work with this wire broken. And here I actually broke it on video. So I started by getting a wire brush and I cleaned off all of the rust that was on these bottom terminals. Well, as much as I could anyways. It's better than it was. But during that process, I found that this wire here had rusted off completely. So I started by splicing this wire back together, which was easy enough. But for the other wire, I had to extend it so it would reach up there and then teach myself how to solder. I know that doesn't look very great, but that was my first ever attempt at soldering. The connector I used over here was really long, so I had to tape the wire along the side of the battery. And then I layered duct tape along the bottom of the battery so I wouldn't have to put that rusty sticker back on. Then I wrapped the whole battery in some really big heat shrink tubing that I had to order specially online. I just heated it up. This actually took way longer than I thought it would, but eventually I got it all shrunken down. It seemed like it was holding up pretty good. I, however, did not realize it would shrink so much horizontally, and so the edge of my battery was peeking out on this side. Oh well. I then decided to seal up all of the gaps with silicone, and then I rubbed them in with my finger to make sure it made a really nice seal. I was not taking any chances of any water getting in here in the future. The other side was a bit more tricky with all the wires and everything, so I ended up just putting silicone over pretty much the entire end. I then shaped this with my finger as well, and it got everywhere. It was a mess. I then decided to fill a few holes in my battery case too, because again, I wasn't taking any chances anymore. Then after I let everything dry, I slapped a piece of duct tape on the end of that battery that was sticking out, and good as new. I ended up spending about $100 on parts and tools, but that was much better than the $350 it would have been for a new battery. And I can use all these tools in the future if something else breaks or I start a new project. But that was how I repaired the battery on my Backfire Zealot electric skateboard.